Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Omri Lahad from Victorian Renaissance, and today we're going to talk about sandpaper. Now, sandpapers are very essential for our project, whether we finish a floor, walls, paneling, any kind of wood, anything in the project that involves with wood. Sandpaper is the utmost important part of the finish, whether you stain it, whether you paint it. Now, there's some old myths going around wood and how to finish it, and I hope I'm going to tackle all of them and make sure you're on the right track for your project to make it nice and even. So we'll start saying that the sandpapers variate on a different grades and a different roughness to finish. That will give you if you keep the certain stages, you will get the results you want to have. And the mainly reason is because wood, this is a very rough side of the wood, and you don't want to jump to a high finish because you got to get rid of the roughness before. So there's certain scales that you got to go through. And once you get to that stages, you'll be able to get a very good results. So we'll start with a grade that says 60s, right? 60s is for very rough. You will feel it right away on your hand and on your wood. It will take a lot of the roughness that the wood have, and basically you'll see a lot of dust coming out of the wood, and that's a good sign. One more thing, when you sand the wood, you want to make sure you do it with the grain lines and not against them. Now, this is a short piece, so it's easy, but sometimes people get tricky about it. Or same things for wood floor. If sometimes they go diagonals in a different direction, you want to tackle them exactly on the wood grain. That's very important. Now, as far as we start with a 60, so 60 will go to take it to the very rough edges of the wood. And then the next jump will be 80, 100, 120, 150. And then we have 200, 220, 320, 280. And you want to make sure that you don't over sand it or you don't overdo it with, sometimes if you jump between 60 to 80 to 150, sometimes it'll be too big of a jump. It also depends on the wood. There are softwood and there's a hardwood. So you want to make sure you know which wood you're working on. On a different video, I'm going to explain to you about wood and the type of wood and how to finish them. But for now, you want to make sure that the sandpaper you're using, there's not a big of a jump. So my recommendation normally is to go for an 80 on a soft and sometimes on a hard wood, 80 to 120, 150 if you may, and then to 220. I don't think, or I believe, or from my experience, if you send it more than 220, it doesn't mean you're going to get better results. That's the max it gets. Now, people use high numbers. This is 2000, right? This is a very, very fine sandpaper. Now, the sandpaper, you use the 300, the 400, the 600. You want to use them after you apply coats. Now, what happened is if you use stain, what happened wood is, imagine there's strokes of channels inside the wood. So as soon as you pour water in it, it starts to expand. The wood grain starts to lift up, and you want to kind of slightly move them away without hurting the stain you are applying or the paint you're applying. Normally in a paint, it is a different application, but mostly with stain. So as soon as water moist interact with wood, the wood grain goes up. If you want to finish a wood with a water base, you want to take a rag, a little bit with water, and you want to go over the wood before you sand it out. This way, the water will take the grain out, and then you're going to sand it out with a fine 120, 150. And then when you apply the water base, less grain going to come up because you already took the first layer. So that's very important to know. And again, I'm going to do a different video on finishing, how to finish a wood and the reaction of wood, and I'm going to dive more into it. 220, you max out the finesse you can get for wood. Now, you'll see that the sandpaper comes in variations of colors. The colors are pretty much, most of the yellow one that you'll see, almost the gold is a different, but you'll see the yellow one, the orangey one. These are more cheap one. You can use them on a very rough finishes. I like to use the 3M, the purple ones. They are very good. They take a lot of it. You'll see that you're going to compare once you sand a lot, like we used to do a lot of restoration. We do still a lot of restoration, and therefore the 3M, the purple, gives me beautiful finish. It doesn't take wear and tear of a lot of usage of paper. They can take a lot until they're gonna go bad. And even if they go bad, sometimes you want to keep them because they might, the new one will take too much, and the used one will take just as much as you need. So don't throw them away. They might use it for a different wood in a different process, and we want to save as much as we can on the material we are spending for. Now, so like I said, you have the orange. The orange is more for cheap one. You have the black one that is more for finesse, more for very high numbers that you want to use. And then you get the purple one. There's also the green one, and there's a gold one and a white one. So they all made from different materials. It doesn't really matter or relevant for your project, but it's good for you to know it. Another thing I want to go over with you on the sandpaper, most of the time you see next to the number, you see a P next to it. Basically, what did it mean? That if without the P is a US and with the P is European standard. Now, European standard and American standard pretty much go the same thing until they get to 220. Above 220, there's a certain jump where the European is not equal to the American standard. So if you think you're using European above, I say 220, 280 or 400, on the you're not going to get the same results you're going to get it with the American. So you want to even jump a little bit higher on the European. Let's say if you want to get 400 on the American, you want to use 600 or 500 on the European to get 400 grade results. It's a good thing to know and to keep in mind. Another thing is when you sand out, especially big surfaces, not as skinny as this one, you want to make sure to get an angle, the right angle. If you can lift it, that's fine. If you need to bend to see, and this way you'll see where you miss the spots or where you need a little bit more roughness. Some woods are more dense in certain areas, and you want to make sure those dense areas are being treated sometimes in a higher number. So you want to make sure, and then you pass your hand, you want to make sure you get the smoothest you need. Before you apply any finish, you clean it with an air gun or with a brush. You want to make sure there is no dust in the wood, because that on the finish going to reflect right away, and you need to start all over again and fix. So therefore, very important to look at. And I hope you learn a little bit about sandpapers. Try it in your project. Do some experiment before you apply it on your project, so this way you can get certain finish. Because let's say you want to do it with a stain, or you want to do just a water-based sealer. So you want to make sure you sand it out before you do sample on a different piece of wood. You sand it out to the finish grade you want. You reach to the 220, apply your finish, see how it looks. Mostly all finishes require about more than one coat. So you want to get to the coat, and between the coats, just sand it lightly until you get to the requirement and to your satisfaction. But you'll see a major difference whether you did it all the process all the way through, or you did only halfway. You'll see the variation between the two finishes, and that will give you a better confidence to work on your project and know what to aim for, because that's very important to achieve the best results. So that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow. A lot of social media, a lot of stuff coming in. Thank you very much. See you next time.